Jaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Alive on the Moon, Jaro, it's on the Penalive, with your host David Knapp.
Welcome to the stream. Happy Thursday night. I'm Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. That's why you're here. This is On the Pen Live on YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere. Thank you for being here. You are the best part of what I do. What an awesome, awesome, awesome gift it is to be able to do this in community together, whether you're on the Clapper community or you're on the TikTok community or you're on the YouTube community or whether you're on Facebook. We're in all the places. So thank you for being here with us. Truly, it is an honor that you all spend some time with me each week doing this. I am so grateful for each and every one of you, especially those of you who are members over on YouTube and on TikTok, but especially over on YouTube. YouTube is where the magic happens for this show. This happens every Thursday night. So if you're new here, drop an N in the chat next to your name. Let me know that you're new here. And if you're watching on one of the other platforms, let me know that you are wanting to see more of this, right? So interestingly, this is the first time that we've ever streamed live to 3 different locations, or well, actually 5 different locations. We're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, we're live on Clapper, we're live on TikTok, and we're live on X. So we're live everywhere. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. If you want to become a subscriber, a paid member that supports the work that I do on this channel. I mean, the work that I do, fully relies on your generosity. So if you want to become a member, if you're on YouTube, you can click the link in the description. If you're on an Android, there's just a button that says join, or in the description of the video, there's a thing that says join. You'll pick it up if you read the description. If you're on TikTok, you can just hit this little star up here. I literally rely on those gifts, and I make sweatshop money when you add up the hours, but I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful to be making anything because I love doing this, but I rely on your gifts to keep me going and to be able to justify the work that we do here. So thank you for those who give in that way. If you want to become a member, you have the call outs to do that now. So this is a different show, right? different from what it is every week when we do this. As you can tell, I'm on the road for work, so I'm doing a trade show. And I'm not just doing a trade show, I am completely flying solo on this trade show. So it's been a ton of setup. I'm out of town, away from home, away from my family. I hate that. I hate being away from my family, but I'm so thankful to be working a job now where I don't have to do that often. And so actually, it's like the type of thing where I actually enjoy doing it now, because I just, for so long, I had to do this and I'd have to be, flying and away from home and dealing with travel. And I'm just so thankful to not have to be doing that anymore. So, yeah, so that's the story and I'm sticking to it. I'm so glad you're here tonight. And I hope that you'll hang out for a little while. Like I said, this is going to be, oh, Donna with a $49.99 super chat. My goodness. Thank you so much. $99.99 super chat. Man, they're just flying in here. I can't keep up. Donna, thank you. Corey, thank you. Sabrina, thank you. My goodness. I can't keep up. But yeah, so thank you for all the gifts that you guys give me that keeps us going here. So here's the deal. It's going to be a different show. Like I said, I don't have a typical guest the way that we normally do, but my friend Michelle Hess, Chronic Bariatric Girly on Instagram, is here. She's going to share a little segment about maintenance. We'll probably just chit chat for a while. I really want this episode here to be about, yeah, you're welcome, Coy. Coy said, we appreciate you going live during your work trip. Absolutely. I mean, this is actually easier for me to do this now than it is when I'm home with 4 kids. So I'm a father of 4 kids. I have 4 beautiful children, Sawyer, Cooper, Evie, and Benny. And then I have a beautiful, adoring wife, Jenny. It's Jenny's birthday on the 28th. So give my beautiful, adoring wife some love in the chat. She is the one who, like, listen, I did an interview earlier this week with a local Bloomberg affiliate, and he's like, "Where do you find the time to do this?" And I was like, "I don't know, but my wife puts up with it and allows me." Hey, Kim, how are you? My wife puts up with it and allows me the peripheral time to do this, and it's just a gift. It's a gift because I love this. I love doing this. It fills my soul to be able to spend this time with you all every week and to be able to bring you the information. I was asked on this interview, why did you start this? And I said, there was a lot of content creators that were sharing their journey when I started Manjaro back in 2022. I wasn't on TikTok. I was only on YouTube, but everything was like, look, I lost all this weight. Right. And I thought that's really cool, but like, how does it work? And, is there better things in the pipeline? And like, how, who makes these medicines? So I efforted to learn all of this stuff and just decided I'm going to put this all out on the internet, even though I started my channel as like, just to document my journey, but it quickly morphed into sharing the news. And so now that is basically what you all come here for, is for the news every week, not only about Manjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Zepbound, but you come here to learn about VK2733, AMG 133. You come here to learn about retatrutide. You come here to learn about CagriSema. You come here to learn about high-dose tirzepatide, high-dose semaglutide. You come here to learn about everything that's in the pipeline. That's what we do. And I'm just so thankful that you all find value in what I do. And I'm to bring it back home, I'm so thankful for my wife, because it's a tremendous it is a tremendous amount of time that it takes to do this. And I don't say that in a way where I'm trying to make a martyr of myself in any way. It is what it is. It takes a lot of time, and she knows how important that is to me. And I think of I'm going to get sentimental on you, but when my wife and I were married, and we wrote our vows to each other, and I just remember um, uh, I'm gonna end up getting real sentimental tonight. I remember writing those vows, and I remember writing the words, I take your dreams and I make them my own. That's what she's done for me for the last couple of years, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. When I started this was just such. We have four little kids. Little kids. My wife started a new job this year. She had been home with the kids. That was her dream, right? So, so for I didn't expect to do this, but I love my wife. For 10 years, from the time that we found out that we were pregnant with our first, I said, "You'll stay at home. You'll stay at home. That's what your dream is for our kids. I can't think of a better place for you to be. You'll be home with our kids." And so, for the first 10 years of having kids, and we were married for 5 years before we had kids, and so for the first 10 years that our kids were uh, for the first 10 years that our kids had been alive, she was home with them. And then this year she took a job, and she took a job which freed me up to take a different job, which freed more time up to do this. And so all of this to say that none of this would happen without my wife being willing to pick up extra work at home on top of working outside the home as a kindergarten teacher for the first time in 10 years. You just don't. That's the part of On the Pen that you don't see, and I don't ever really talk about, is the part of this story that this only happens if Jenny is willing to take on an extra burden at home to just do the extra things. And so, Jenny, I know she's not watching this because she's at home putting 4 kids to bed by herself, but thank you. I love you. You know, that's no news flash to you, but happy birthday. I can't wait to be home and celebrate with you this weekend. So didn't want to do that. Didn't mean to do that. That just sort of happened, but I love my wife. And that is not any, for anybody who knows me in real life, that is not any surprise. So yeah. All right. So that was the first 12 and a half minutes of this show this week. So thank you. Thank you for the love that you gave Jenny in the chat, and thank you all for the role that you play in this channel too. So thank you, Mimi. Thank you. I appreciate that super sticker. So all right, so what are we talking about this week? All right, so let's get into it. So I apologize, I'm not really keeping up with the chat. That's okay though. Emmy, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That's very kind. I need a producer here. Okay, so here's the deal. This has been kind of a quiet week, right? I feel like this week has been the calm before the storm, right? So I was going back through my TikTok feed the last couple of days because, as you know, there's been a tremendous amount of censorship on TikTok. I was back and forth sort of mentally about, do I stay on that platform knowing that they are discriminating against people with obesity and diabetes, sharing about medicine that is helping them? So if you don't know, for just context, I'm sick of talking about this. I'm sick of other people talking about this, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But the YouTube censorship, thank you to Madison Mueller over at Bloomberg for being willing to tell the story of those of us who have been silenced basically over there with the new community guidelines. So I struggled back and forth with, do I continue to stay on that platform? Do I continue to stay somewhere where I cannot sort of true up in my brain how they can be so opposed to what I'm so for, right? And so wrestling with that, I wasn't going to make content. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to say what needs to be said, because what good is a platform where you can't say what you set out to say? The answer is nothing. It's good for nothing. It's absolutely good for nothing if you can't say the things that need to be said. And so that all said, I decided to just kind of throw caution to the wind and just continue to make content over there like I always have, let the chips fall where they may. So that's where we're at with the content. But I was scrolling through my feed and sort of looking back at the last month and a half and just how it was such a cool evolution. You know, I started talking about the Manjaro vials because in my brain, I go, like, the Manjaro vials have been approved. We're in these tremendous shortages. I'm hearing from hundreds of people a day that are driving 6 hours, calling 150 pharmacies, doing all these things. These are real people. And sometimes as a creator, as a content creator, thank you for the gifts over on TikTok. Sometimes as a content creator, it's very easy to, like, you hear from so many people, it almost becomes white noise. And you forget, like, these are actually people with real lives on the other end of, like, you got, 250 messages, you got 35 emails, you've got 150 comments to get back to, and it's just impossible. But these are people with real lives that are being impacted by these shortages. So I thought they need to release these Manjaro vials. We know that they can crank these things out like probably 100 vials to every 4 pens that they make. I don't know what the ratio is. I mean, neither do they, probably, frankly. Somebody within the company probably does. But it would be much easier. If they have the vials, then why don't they release them? And so within a couple of days of really starting to harp on that, I started to notice some interesting changes on the FDA website, which, like I said, I watched the FDA website like a hawk. And I noticed there was this weird change. I go, in my brain, I go, last time that happened was when they announced that they were going to make single dose vials for Manjaro. And you can go back. I have a playlist on TikTok, but it just sort of, and so I just watched the evolution of this story unfold. It was like I made the videos about release the Manjaro vials. I saw the weird thing happen with the Zepbound stuff on the FDA website. I kind of said, I think it might happen for Zepbound. And then a couple of days later, the FDA did indeed announce that they approved the Zepbound vials. And so, like, what's the next step? Well, this past week, we saw them add that approved package insert, which includes dosing instruction on the vials. We saw them upload that to their Zepbound and their Zepbound website, right? So this is becoming more and more real. So now this all tees up what a big week next week is, because this, like I said, is the calm before the storm. Next week on the 30th, Tuesday, is the earnings call. Now, if you're on YouTube, this is not for you, TikTok. This is not for you, Clapper. This is for my OGs over on YouTube, because that's where this thing all began. You know that one of the first things I started doing when I started covering these medications was I started covering the earnings calls. So now for the last almost 2 years, I've been covering Eli Lilly earnings calls. You ever want to know why I have the insight that I do into Eli Lilly? It's because every time one of their C-level executives have spoken over the last almost 2 years, I have listened and I've taken notes and I've made videos about them. So I've been really a student of Eli Lilly for the last couple of years. And this week is maybe the biggest earnings call that I will cover, because I believe that what we will hear on this earnings call is that Eli Lilly will release single dose vials of Zepbound and Manjaro. Now, I don't know what capacity, I don't know what doses, I don't know if it will be both Zepbound and Manjaro. I really don't know, but I really do believe that they're coming. And so what I don't want everybody to do, because this is sort of taken on a life of its own, right? Like, I've done these interviews and people have asked me so many questions about them. I'm like, I don't want everybody to think that the vials will be the be all end all solution, but think of it more like this. You know, when you make food in an Instapot, you don't just take the lid off, right? Because all this pressure is building up, the pressure being the shortages, right? All this pressure is building. If you just took the lid off, it would just all explode everywhere. This is more of a pressure release valve. So that little thing you flip, and then it goes psss, and it releases the pressure slowly. So this single dose vial thing will not forgive the sins of the demand and their ability to manufacture drugs, but it will be a pressure release valve. And so I am hoping that once the vials are released, that things will ease up a little bit. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess that the single dose vials will release in the early doses, because I think for Eli Lilly, you have to think, whenever you think about a publicly traded company like Eli Lilly, like they're on the stock exchange, they have three people to consider, right? If it's a pharmaceutical company, they have to consider the patient, they have to consider their employees, and they have to consider their investors. These are the things they have to consider when they make business decisions. The reason that we've been pushing to release the vial is because we as patients need relief. But there's always been a business case to make for this, because at some point they will have to make the decision, do we stop writing new prescriptions for Zepbound because we can't keep up? Or do we ignore the upper doses and the people who have been on it? That's not really a decision that they want to make, and they for sure don't want to turn off new prescriptions. You saw Eli Lilly and Zepbound basically for the first time eclipse new prescriptions of Zepbound over Wegovy about a month ago. That is not a freight train they want to get into. So I think they'll release the vials, and I think, again, from the business sense, they've always worried probably about people taking the 15 milligram. Everybody just jumped to the 15 milligram dose and split the vials, even though they're supposed to be single dose. Now, if they do release the vials, I want to be very clear right now, right off the bat. If they release the single dose vials, they are single dose vials. That means they do not have preservatives in them for you to break the seal of that vial, pull out part of the medication, and then save the rest for later. They don't have the proper preservatives for that. So they're not to be split. But I think the fear has always been that people will. And so I think that for that reason, I think you won't see the larger doses and vials. I think you may see the earlier doses, the 2.5, the 5, the 7.5. But I don't really know. All I know at this point is I really do believe that we will see the single dose vials. And I really do believe that your voice TikTok, your voice Clapper, your voice YouTube, and everybody using the Release the Vials campaign has gotten pressure. And that's what this whole thing is about. Like, we're just patients. And so long as we stay in our little echo chamber of our little social media corners of the world, we're just telling each other how these shortages are. We're just telling each other the tips and tricks. We're just telling each other about our struggles. We have to get our message outside that bubble in order for pressure to be put on Eli Lilly. And that's exactly what Madison Muller over at Bloomberg, thank God for her and her willingness to bring some attention to this, helped to do, because then Release the Vials articles were picked up by other major news outlets. And so you choosing to be a part of that movement has been a massive part of, I think, being an impetus behind some real change, right? And so thank you to all of you who have used that hashtag. Thank you to all of you who have been part of putting the pressure, because again, this will help to relieve the pressure on the supply, which we've all struggled with. So thank you for those of you who have been a part of that. Thank you for those who are part of the community. Make sure as you're watching tonight that you hit subscribe, that you hit the like, the save, the share, do all those things, because the more of you that are in this community, whether you're on TikTok or YouTube or Clapper, wherever you're at tonight, you're part of this bigger community. And so we're just sort of rallying around the Release the Vials campaign now. It'll be something else tomorrow, but the point is getting our voices heard, right? So thank you to those who are all members here. If you haven't heard, I also have a podcast. It's called On the Pen, the Weekly Dose. Thank you to those who went over and gave some 5-star rating and reviews. I just want to read a couple of those to you, because I was reading these reviews this week, and I almost was moved to tears when I was reading them, because they were so, they were just so heartfelt and kind. And so, Sunny Flowers left a message, said Dave is super smart, and which that's crossing the line. But Dave is one of the most knowledgeable content creators on social media. His podcast is so helpful for those of us interested in or actually taking GLP meds. I can't tell you how helpful his content has been on my journey. Another person said this podcast is great, salient information. Dave Knapp is the person to follow to stay updated on all the latest obesity medication news, including Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. He's been featured in Bloomberg and Yahoo Finance. As someone who has a huge community for GLP-1 medications like Mounjaro, Zepbound, Ozempic, and Wegovy, he has real-world and actual knowledge and experience of patients, and he has an excellent voice to frustration and triumphs. So I'm just so thankful for those of you who have dropped these just glowing reviews over there. If you want to do that, the link is I think it's in the description of the video, but go over, check out the podcast on the Pin, the Weekly Dose. Thank you for those who gave the kind words this week. All right. I'm wrapping up all of the things that I wanted to say tonight, and some of the things I didn't even intend to say. But thank you for those who went over and gave the 5-star rating and review to the podcast this week. We topped the charts this week at 28th in the United States. 28th in the United States for medicine podcasts. Did you all hear that? Andrew Huberman is number 1. On the Pen, the Weekly Dose is number 28. That's you. That's you. You all are doing this. So make sure, if you're new here, it's so important that you get over and give the podcast a 5-star rating and review and share it with like 30 friends, especially the friends who just want to know, well, like, what is this medication you're taking? Is it phentermine? Is it fen-phen? No, these are actually peptides that mimic gut hormones that you're dysregulated in when you're metabolically sick. And this dude talks about all of them. So you should check him out. So yeah, share the podcast. Thank you all. Thank you all for bearing with me. I have got a friend here tonight to talk about maintenance. So we've been doing this maintenance segment for the last few weeks, and it's just been great because I ain't there. But I know so many of you are there, or so many of you are on the precipice. How you like that word? Precipice. Of being in maintenance. And so I wanted to be able to bring you some content that helped you to navigate, like, what does maintenance look like? What are the tools that you can use? What are the things I need to be considering so that you don't like get to that point and then just be completely lost and not know what to do? So in step my friend, Michelle. Michelle, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, Dave?
Sorry, I've got my volume turned down.
Oh,
Let me turn it up here.
no
Sorry, I
worries.
missed you. What'd you say?
Oh, I said I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you
Good.
for being here. So,
Of course.
without getting too much in the weeds on your personal stuff, Michelle is like away from home right now. She's dealing with some unfortunate, issues going on with her mother's health. So thank you for taking the time to still be here and share. We're so thankful that you're here. And what do you got for us this week?
Well, thanks. I really appreciate it. This is a good distraction for me, first of all. So thanks for having me, of course.
Good.
Well, actually, I was going to talk about dosing this week, but I decided, since I'm in a precarious situation, that it might be time to talk about a precarious situation with me being, travel's never been a problem for me with maintenance, even with my bariatric surgery, because I did that for work. But this is a very different kind of situation. I am completely out of my routine. There is no time for me to do anything that I normally do, and it's just plain weird. Plus, we've got the shortage going on. And I think the shortage has rarely ever affected me very much at all. I mean, I usually can find something close to my dose. This time, it's really weird. So last month, I had to go down from my 7.5 maintenance dose, which, I've gone all the way to 15 and stayed there for months, to 5 milligram. First couple of weeks, that was going okay. But this week, I feel like, even though I'm using a scale I bought locally and not my usual scale, like I might be getting off a little bit. And I don't know if it's the 5 milligram, the situation, or the scale. So it's kind of weird. But now, for next month, guess what my new dose is? 15 milligrams. That's the which I couldn't stop losing weight on. But I call the pharmacy up, and I've switched pharmacies 3 times, and I really don't want to again. And so they had 2 12.5s, a bunch of 2.5s, which is my most hated dose. I hate 2.5, and a boatload of 15s. So I get on the line with the telemedicine person instead of my primary, just to see if she'll do the 15 for me. She says no, she will not. She'll do the 2.5. So I have her call it in. But then I check with my primary, who had written me a year's worth of 7.5. And I said, will you do the 15? And he said, yes. So I had 2 choices. Well, I was on it for months and months, So what I'm going to try, which I have not been successful at before, is stretching it out. doing the 15 and stretching it out. I'm not going to try to split it, I don't think. I'm just too clumsy. I'll probably spill it or something. And I don't want to do that. But I've never had luck with stretching it out because with me, it's with my bariatric surgery, I only eat tiny portions anyway. I was just getting hungry too soon. And so with me, usually about day 6 or 7, I start getting that back. So I'm a little concerned. So I'm going to be a test case is what I'm saying here, and see how this goes. And I've been talking to a couple other people too who are just getting started in maintenance. I think I started maintenance in October, but then I kept losing and didn't find my maintenance dose till January, which was 7.5. So I approached that by just dropping doses until I stopped losing weight. And anyway, I know that's not the same for everybody, but I still continued weekly shots because it worked for me.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting to hear from this perspective, right? Because you're going, okay, I can't get the dose I want, which is a low dose, but I can get a high dose. So how do I stretch it out to achieve, a similar concentration of medicine? Where there's like people like me who I went back to 10, so I started taking them closer together to get the similar effect from 12.5. It's like we're all just guinea pigs. Like this is exactly the kind of stuff that Eli Lilly has to go, yeah, we better get this thing figured out.
Right, exactly. And I mean, for me, it was shocking just because I had been so lucky to be able to find what I needed for so long. I didn't know what was going to happen this time. I didn't want to go to 5, but I had to. And so we'll see, see how it goes.
Yeah, that's wild. It's the wild, wild west. So,
but yeah.
Well, one question that I have is if you plan to get all those plastic balls out of that container and play in the plastic balls while
I probably should. Those are baby Chloe's. Well, she's 3 now, but we still call her baby Chloe because she's the first baby we had in the family in like 30 years. So
first of all, if you wanna have an idea about what it's like to be a parent of small children, and I have 4. Sounds like like you guys have 1 there.
1, and she's a ball of energy.
Yeah, and there's like 80,000 balls in that bag.
Yeah.
So like imagine your house just full of like a billion toys. That is exactly what our house is like. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, somebody came in to visit Mom the other day, a nurse, and looked at the dining room and said, all of those are for one little girl? All of those toys? There's just one little girl? We're like, she's got 3 driving vehicles or 4. I mean,
nice. She's got like a little garage. It's like what's that show on MTV when I was a kid? Cribs?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like baby Chloe takes them to her little garage and she's like, this is my Benz and this is my Rolls Royce.
Yeah, she does. She has a Benz SUV.
Probably got little radios in them so she can listen to Taylor Swift while she's cruising through the backyard. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's try to get it back on track. So you're stretching out your doses.
Yeah.
When do you take the first one?
That'll be the week after next. So I've still got 1 more 5. And for the first time on my plane, even though I put ice in there, it melted. So I only have I had 2 5s, so they have to be taken in 21 days. I took 1 on Tuesday. I'll take another one this Tuesday, and then the following Tuesday it'll be time for the 15.
And do you anticipate that you'll be back home for that, or will you?
Well, for that I will, but then I have to come back here. So I'm taking Mom with me to go back because I have doctor's appointments, and so we're leaving Tuesday, and I can't take Mom on a plane, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to drive, which is gonna be hard on me because I'm not very good with my back, but we're gonna do it. So yeah, I'll be back there, and then be back there for appointments, and then have to come back here. So the first one will be there. But because I'll have my Jeep, I'm going to bring my scale back this time with me because that whizzing scale, I rely on it daily for maintenance. I have a good range, but it really keeps me on track. I just had one delivered from Five Below for $5 here. So who knows if it's right?
Probably not like the one at home for sure.
No, for sure.
You and Sue the dude will have to trade tips on how to manage your back on long car rides because he's got back issues too, and
Yeah.
he just did a cross country trip all the way out to Arizona too. So
Yeah, I'm only supposed to go 30 minutes at a time, and it's going to be tough. But I've got that long fusion, so it's rough. But I'll have to talk to Sue for sure. I've done some shorter California trips, and it's been bad, but I haven't done a cross country trip in probably 5 or 6 years at least. I've done it a lot, but not in a long
wow.
time. But I
Yeah.
wanted to mention that I remember the first time you did one of these exactly like this from the Embassy Suites in Phoenix with the stained couch.
Yep.
That was so cool.
I forgot about the stained couch because I made a short video. Bonnie wants to know what the name of my podcast is. It's On the Pen, the Weekly Dose.
Oh, it's a great
But
podcast
yes.
too.
Oh, thank you. So the stained couch, yeah, I remember that. It was the nastiest hotel room, and then I had this. Yeah, I don't even know if I left that video up, but it was like when I was just starting my channel, it was like trying to inject a little of my humor in it, and I'm not sure that it quite landed with people because they're like, "Do we take this guy seriously, or is he just a clown?" And the reality is, it's both.
I was on the show that night.
That's right. That's right. And I think that was the same trip where I started to talk about Red of True Tide, where I did my first Red of
Yeah.
True Tide video.
Right. That was fun stuff, though.
It was. It's hard to believe. I mean, this is sort of a reminiscing show, I guess is what it's turned into, but
Yeah.
it's crazy how long I've been doing this. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it could possibly be knocking on the door of 2 years of making content. But it's crazy. I mean, I think about this earnings call, and it's like second nature. The earnings call is coming up. Of course, I'm going to be covering that, and yeah, it's just wild. It's wild, and you've been here since the beginning. So thank you.
Well, and guess who's here tonight? The person who told me about your show, Abby. She's got a new name, and she's here. Yeah.
It's so awesome. Abby has been in my lives and she's followed me around on the different social media platforms. So whether you're on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, I'm on all those places. But some of these people will go show up on all of those platforms, and Abby's one of them, and she's just been around for a long time. So I'm glad that she's here. Where did you come across Abby? Like on another
on the Discord.
channel?
I met her. I think it was the Discord, maybe. Yeah, it was because we were on Discord and that's how we found out about you. Because I don't know if you remember this, but you weren't showing up in my YouTube for some reason, in my searches. And it was like your second or third show that I came in and met you, and started watching you. And then you joined the Discord, and it was from there. Yeah. I met Abby and Ben's Discord.
Yeah. BJ Davis. Check him out on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely.
So Carla has a really good question that I want to touch on because I have a lot to say about it. I'll be interested in what you have to say. So Carla wants to know if Bernie Sanders will get any pertinent information from this pharmaceutical company. So let me just tee this up, and then I'll kind of give you my 10 cents, and then I want to hear yours.
Okay.
So Bernie Sanders basically sent a letter to Lars, what is his name? Jorgensen, whoever the CEO of Novo Nordisk.
Yeah.
So he was like the Time Person of the Year this year or something like that. But anyways, basically Bernie Sanders is the chairman of a Senate committee that's in charge of basically looking at pensions for public employees, right? And as part of this, he did an inquiry. Had like a big panel like maybe 3 or 4 months ago that involved Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. And then this past couple of weeks, a story broke that Ozempic costs $5 to manufacture, and that's with like 100% markup or whatever. And so he basically sent a letter to Novo Nordisk this week saying that his committee is launching an official investigation into the cost of their semaglutide products. Okay. So what I thought, and this kind of tees up Carla's question, do I think they will get any pertinent information from the pharmaceutical companies? So here's a couple things. Like, we already know that these pharmaceutical companies charge a ton of money for these drugs. We already know that in the United States, we pay way more for the drugs than they do in the other parts of the world. Like, none of that is new news, and it's certainly not isolated to GLP-1s, and it's certainly not isolated to Novo Nordisk, right? So, it's kind of interesting to have Novo Nordisk. So why might Novo Nordisk be singled out? Well, when you saw the STEP trial information come out, and it was basically an open door for people who are on Medicare to get Wegovy covered, because if they have heart disease, now they can get Wegovy covered. Now Medicare's looking at it, and there's 13 million people on Medicare who could now qualify for Wegovy, which would, these have the potential to bankrupt Wegovy, or these medicines have the potential to bankrupt Medicare if all the people who qualify for them were to suddenly get on them. So, none of this is real news, and it's obvious why he would single out Novo Nordisk at this time. Now, here's what I think is the pertinent information that we will get into that. If you read his letter, one of the pieces of information that he's requesting from Novo Nordisk is information about how much the PBMs are paying for the medication. And to me, this is the buried lead in this story, because we always want to go after Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk over the cost of these medications. But what many people don't understand is the PBMs, the pharmacy benefits managers, OptumRx, CVS Caremark, Express Scripts. These companies basically have a giant pay-to-play scheme with the pharmaceutical companies, where they'll basically say, if you know how Walmart works, basically, like, if you want to sell a toaster at Walmart basically says, all right, we're going to bring 5 companies in, and we want a $5 toaster. Who can make us a $5 toaster? And then one of those companies goes, we can do it. So then that company comes out, they make the cheapest toaster they can possibly make, and they're the ones that get to sell their toaster at Walmart. The PBMs work similarly, where they go, all right, so we've got this GLP-1 class of medications. Who's willing to sell it to us for $350? So when you pay, when you see $900, the cost of Ozempic, and you see your PBM paying their copay, just know that $900 is not the price that they paid for that medication. They pocketed a good bit of that. So PBMs when you talk about fat to be trimmed from the cost of medications, the PBMs insert a lot of additional costs on our medication. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because they're going to have to report, Novo Nordisk is, on what these negotiations with these top 5 PBMs and insurers are, and how much they're actually paying. So when you see how much the PBMs are paying for these medications, you'll go, oh, and they're paying that, and then they're pocketing the difference. Similar to the way the single payer countries are able to arbitrate the cost of medications, PBMs do that too. They just pocket the difference instead of passing that savings along to you and I. But what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I did see your video, and I was impressed with that. With your video overall, I was also impressed with Bernie, believe it or not. Which I'm not like a big Bernie, Bernie person, but because he did ask a lot of the right questions. I agree with you on the PBMs, of course, they're a big problem. But one of the things I'm interested in is, Danish privacy laws, even for a company that's working and providing a product and making profit in the United States, are very different than U.S. law. If this was if he had issued a subpoena under the Hague, even I would still be a little concerned about how they're going to respond. But if he had done this for Lilly, it might be a little bit of a different story, right? But I mean, we're talking about a Danish company that, even selling in the United States, has different laws and things that they go by as far as the privacy of a company. And so it's going to be tricky. I think it's going to be up to how the company wants to approach this more than anything else. They could certainly refuse. Certainly could. And he can't do much to stop them, especially since he sent a letter. I mean, it's nice of him to send a letter, but he didn't try to get a subpoena through the Hague or anything. So those are my first thoughts.
But maybe you know the answer to this and maybe not. But okay, let's just play this out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that Novo Nordisk looks at this inquiry and they go, we're just not going to respond to this.
Mm-hmm.
Then basically beyond that, if they just go, we're not going to respond to it, wouldn't there be like Senate hearing? Couldn't he just go, fine, we'll have Senate hearings in it and we'll subpoena you and we'll do
he could do it, but whether they have to appear as a Danish company even operating in the United States is going to be probably fought out in court.
So what I'm hearing you say though, and this might be why you like, because when I posted the video, like maybe 30% of the comments were like, Lily's next, do Lily next. If they did this to Eli Lilly, it would be a totally different story because they're an American-held company, and then they would be beholden to basically if they're like you're subpoenaed, they have to show up, they have to, but they're not because it doesn't like at least currently it doesn't overlap with this Medicare issue where Wegovy and Ozempic do.
Right. Exactly. And I'm just speculating here, right? I'm just basing this on cases I've been involved in the past that relate to European privacy and companies and things that now sometimes they involve our government, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just our courts, which obviously are part of our government, but not an actual Senate or a Congress deal, right? A House deal. But they are so protective of their company's privacy compared to us and individuals too, not just companies, that it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, they may be smart about it and try to give him as much as they can because they don't want to pay a bunch of legal fees and battle this. But it also depends on what is their information. You know what happened with Merck, for instance, and the lawsuits before. They had all this stuff in their email that really screwed them over. And if they've been talking about price gouging in their emails, for instance, or something, they're not going to like serve that up. But it'll be interesting. I'm most interested to see what those patents are valued at because that's going to be the tricky part. They may actually have to get a valuation if they wanted to do that. And are they beholden to the U.S. government to pay for evaluation of patents?
Well, and even, I mean, this is probably in the weeds for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize to me because I enjoy this. So like, it's a bit of a self-indulgent topic for me, I guess is what I'm saying, because you know, if you read, and I'll send it to you if you haven't had a chance to review it, but if you read,
I haven't reviewed the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send it to you. What Bernie is basically requesting in here, almost kind of there's a few different things that he's requesting. One of them is obviously more information about how Novo Nordisk is working with PBMs and insurers and what they're charging. But another thing is, like, as you touched on, the valuation of semaglutide, the patent, what they're doing to extend the patent out. But also, like, if you kind of read through the patent stuff, you almost wonder if they could get to the bottom of like how airtight is the actual patent on semaglutide. And this is something that you and I have been talking about literally for almost years. Like, if they shut down compounds, they would have shut down compounds a long time ago.
Exactly. They can't. They keep losing. And it's because peptides are not patentable.
Yeah. I mean, what they have is trademarks.
Right.
They have,
right.
You know, they have, and they did come up with
Well,
the
their
specific
formulation is
amino acids.
patentable,
Right.
but the peptides themselves are, even though it's an analog, the peptides themselves are naturally occurring.
It's a very legal gray area, and so
It
it's
is.
sort of his inquiry sort of gets to part of that. So like I'm interested in the PBM stuff, and I'm interested in what comes out with the patent stuff, and then I'm more interested in whether Eli Lilly gets called in, because again, Eli Lilly sort of skirts around this issue by virtue of not having either of Manjaro or Zepbound at least available through Medicare.
Right, but they're
But
going to.
once the sleep apnea thing goes through, they'll have the same thing will probably happen with sleep apnea that you saw with heart failure, where you'll see
Yes.
Zepbound available through
Mm-hmm.
through Medicare. I'd say within the next 6 months, you'll be able to get Zepbound through Medicare if you have sleep apnea.
Yep.
It won't be as much of a slam dunk as the heart failure thing with Wegovy is, but it will be there
Yes.
for a certain amount of people with the right Part D coverage and the right
Right.
prescription and the right, whatever treatment regimen that they went through to ultimately land on needing tirzepatide. So
Oh, absolutely.
it will be a fascinating thing to watch. This is something that myself and my fellow nerds here, I'm just interested here because user 8675309 on TikTok says that you are incorrect here on the patent, presumably about the patentability of peptides, but this person has no picture and no name here. So I would love to hear more from you, user 8675309. If you have more to add to the conversation than just saying she's incorrect, I would love to hear more from you. So yeah,
That's
it is.
funny.
And Emmy says wild times ahead. It is. Yeah, Visible Scientist says not a naturally occurring peptide, but and I agree with that. It's a long chain of amino acids
Well,
that they developed.
okay, yeah,
right.
Semaglutide is, but not tirzepatide. Tirzepatide hasn't had any change except for the addition of the what extends the life of it and the preservatives. Semaglutide, the lipidization. Semaglutide or semaglutide, that's different. They actually moved one of the amino acids and replaced it with another one. So that one is, but that's not necessarily what the compounds are doing, though, right? The compounds are not necessarily identical to what you're getting from the drug companies.
It is at a very minimum. It is a fascinating conversation. It's always intrigued me since the first days that I was making these videos, and because the Manjaro shortages were a real thing back then. And compounds were creeping up. Compounds are now just so prevalent.
Right.
Not only are more patients using them, but more conversations are taking place around them on social media, and so it's a fascinating conversation. I am, whatever you believe about the patentability of peptides, which I tend to be in Michelle's camp. I know that there's patents on tirzepatide. I know that there's patents on semaglutide. But they're not really enforceable. They've tried to shut them down, but they can't. Every single time Eli Lilly tries to shut down a tirzepatide compound, or every time Novo Nordisk tries to shut down a semaglutide compound, they go after them for the trademark. They go after companies for
because they know
Ozempic, Wegovy, Manjaro, Zepbound. They don't go after the fact that they're using. Well, first of all, because they can be manufactured in times of shortage, and that may be the cover. But it's whatever the reality is about the patentability. It is they're not going anywhere because these medicines aren't coming out of shortage anytime soon. Even with the releasing of the vials, like I said, it's more of a pressure valve release than it is an actual answer to the shortages. But it's something they can do, and that's why we've been advocating for it. But the compounds aren't going.
Well, absolutely. And I would just say really quickly that it's like because the compounds are not likely identical to, even if you had an enforceability, it's still going to be tough because they're probably not we know they're not identical. They don't have the preservatives and things that make them special, right? The lipidation, but it's kind of like trying to patent vitamin C, what the
Yeah.
compounds are, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, you can't do that, and the FDA has no control over that either. So it's
Right.
that's my
Right.
analogy.
The FDA hasn't shut them down either.
No, they've actually issued
Um,
letters saying, advising compound pharmacies now to produce tirzepatide and semaglutide.
Yeah. So one question that I have for you on this is, um, one of the things that the FDA came out and said today. One of the guys that I had, had on this show, Texas Heart Doc, Matt. I can't remember what Matt's last name is, but Texas Heart Doc has been really like, he wants to get to the bottom with the FDA on, are these compounds safe or not? And he's gotten a lot of interesting responses from them, but none of them have been definitive. None of them have been
Right.
like. But what the one he got back today was, and somebody brought this up over on TikTok,
Okay.
was that there are semaglutide salts that have not been approved by the FDA, and then other versions presumably. Do you know anything about that? Like, what do they mean when they say salts? Like, and what's not? I mean, I get what they mean when salts. Like most medicines are some sort of salt, right? But what's the opposite? What is the approved version? You know
from what I believe and what I understand from talking to this pharmacy that I'm familiar with, the salts are a dried version that has to be reconstituted, whereas they're getting a liquid version, and they're not reconstituting anything. And I think I've told you in the past, I believe it's all coming from Merck. I really do. Merck is the biggest chemical producer in the world, and although I was talking about them for a different reason earlier, I'm not obsessed with Merck or anything, but Merck is really good at getting those things, something like a polypeptide out of nature to make an analog. And it would be a liquid.
One of the things I notice, when I look at the research grade companies, is that they refer to semaglutide as a GLP-1 analog, but I never hear tirzepatide referred to as a GIP analog or a GLP-1 analog.
That's an interesting point, and I had not thought about that, but now that you bring it up, because I've been kind of out of this for a while. I'm just getting back into it with your show here. I had kind of fallen out of the whole thing after my last back surgery, so I'm just getting back into it. But now that you mentioned that, that is a really good point, because the GIP, as you know, and we talked about this for a long time, and we went back and forth a long time ago about it, can be an agonist and an antagonist, right? And because of that, I wonder if they're just using something that's more like direct, and it isn't an analog, because they were doing GIP studies before that didn't relate to GLP-1s, or they were just GIP, and they were all antagonist studies. And I wonder if in those studies they weren't using analogs, but it'd be interesting to look into. I'd be interested in looking into it. Yeah.
I was listening to one of the oldest videos on GIP that I could find on YouTube, and it was a couple of guys who were like, there's this new medication called tirzepatide that's going to be approved for diabetes, and I wish I could source them here because it was fascinating. I listened to the whole thing. But they were talking about how there are GIP. So they weren't talking about the antagonism and the agonism piece of it. And I think they did touch on it, but didn't spend a lot of time on it. But they were talking about how GIP actually has a synergistic sort of relationship with GLP-1. It like makes GLP-1 more efficient, similar to what you see in caglarinotide. So caglarinotide, which is a amylin agonist, amylin is co-secreted with insulin. And so you see, kind of the synergistic effect of GLP-1 being insulinogenic. And I don't know.
Well, no, that's interesting, because if you listen to the Docs at Live podcast, Dr. and the Nadolsky brothers, for instance, they were talking about the lixisenatide. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry.
Lixisenatide.
Yeah, lixisenatide, which is what my mom has been on for years. The Soliqua. It's in the United States. It's only available in Soliqua, which is insulin and lixisenatide, right? And they were talking about some of the benefits of it, which is similar to what you're saying. So basically, the lixisenatide with the insulin works very well, and you don't gain weight on that insulin, and you can even lose weight, right? So it kind of makes me think it's a symbiotic relationship like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening still, and first of all, if you're all listening still, you're as big of a nerd as I am. But the Amgen has a monoclonal antibody, GLP-1 GIP, and their GIP is an antagonist, so it blocks the GIP receptors. And that's the weird thing about GIP. And this is the first person I ever learned this from was you. You were like, hey, it doesn't matter whether they antagonize it or agonize it, still equals weight loss. I think the big thing is that Eli Lilly goes, yeah, but when we have an agonist, it reduces the emetic effects of GLP-1. So in other words, it brings down the side effects, where when you block it, there's more side effects. And that's been shown in the Amgen one. Half of the people at the high dose of the Amgen in the phase 1 trials dropped out.
I remember hearing you talk about that, and that makes sense. It's just the interesting thing to me about the antagonism versus the agonism is that they just don't know why or how, right? It's just the weirdest thing. It's like, why does it work both ways?
It's kind of scary that they don't know.
It is.
But exciting nonetheless, because there's so much more to discover. Like when I first started learning about all this stuff, I started saying, we're just at the advent of what these medications can do. Like the way that my doctor framed what Mounjaro can do, he goes, they're starting to find with these peptides that they can get a similar hormone effect in the body to bariatric surgery. Maybe not bariatric surgery results yet, close to some forms of bariatric surgery, but in the future, I have no doubt that medically we'll be able to accomplish what once surgery was only able to do. You agree?
I believe that's probably going to be the case. I still think surgery will have a place for people who don't want to be on a medication, maybe, unless they come up with what I'm hoping for, and I've been talking about for a very long time, and one other person on YouTube has talked about this too, and I think you have at some point, but I've been talking about it for a long time, is customization of these things to figure out what each of us actually needs. I don't know, it may take 100 years, but I think we will eventually get there, because the drugs are very different for me than they are for some people. I'm not insulin resistant. I've had bariatric surgery, so I kept off 80 pounds with that, right? And what it does for me not only helps slow my gastric. I had too fast. My gastric emptying is too fast. That's my problem. And a lot of bariatric patients have that, with sleeve especially, right? But it does something to my metabolism too. I don't have a slow metabolism necessarily, but it does more than just the things that they say it does. I know it does.
That's interesting, because I got an email update. So for any of you who watch this show consistently, about 2-3 shows ago, I had on Mimi from Australia. She was in the chat earlier, but it's the morning time there, and she's probably at work. But she sent me an email this week. She's in the retatrutide trials, and she goes, here's an update for me, but here's what I'm really noticing with this medication is that it's ramping up my metabolism. She's like, I'm moving a lot. I have energy. And so I know that she's not the only one that I've heard that from about retatrutide specifically. So I think adding that glucagon component really even takes that up to the next level for sure. So, I think we're a ways away from these, even retatrutide. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but at the high end, 26 maybe% weight loss. It's a lot better for women for whatever reason. It was like 28% weight loss for women, but it went all the way down to like 23% for men. There's a huge discrepancy between them. Mimi's still here. But yeah.
Hey, Mimi.
I'm not sure what the different surgeries are, but certainly the next generation beyond that. You look at this company that I covered this past week. I can't remember. It started with an M. Somebody will remember it in the chat. But there's a new company that launched this week that's got a bunch of probably venture capital money behind it, where they have like basically a treasure trove of different gut hormones and peptides, and incretin and non-incretin, that they're probably using AI to figure out what the perfect cocktail is. But they will be, their goal is to basically exceed and be best in class for weight loss. And even interestingly, Viking Therapeutics had an earnings call yesterday. Shout out Clark Kent on this one, but they had an earnings call yesterday where they were talking about Viking Tide, both the oral and the injectable. And what was interesting about what they had to say is they are focusing just on really focusing on the weight loss indication in their clinical trials. I mean, obviously the market's so much bigger there, but you just think about, they're the next great thing to come along, and they'll be even bigger than Zepbound.
It sounds impressive for sure. Viking does. I'm especially that oral. It's almost unbelievable what they seem to be doing with that. Especially with the low side effect profile.
Yeah, and an oral peptide, because
I know.
The peptides, their big thing is just the bioavailability, being able to digest it and get the effects. Sorry, I was looking for somebody's comment here, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. Anyways, yeah, great conversation tonight. I didn't come into this with an agenda or a plan, just to go live and hang out. So thanks for hanging with me.
Oh, I enjoyed it so much, and I've been trying to read some of the comments over here. Everybody's saying so many great things, and everybody's got such great insight. I wish we could save the live comments.
Yeah. So when you go back and watch, you should, and you go back and rewatch.
I do rewatch. Yeah.
You should be able to switch the comments over to the comments from the live.
Oh, I hadn't. It might be because I watch it on my stupid iPhone. I need to watch it on here.
If you go to the comments on your iPhone and you just swipe to the left, then it'll change from the comments on the video to the live comments.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. Yeah, because I know my iPhone doesn't do half the stuff it's supposed to on here. So
I have to do that because there's just no way to keep up with them. And like tonight, we're on TikTok, we're on Clapper, we're on YouTube.
Oh, and so I know what it is. It's because I usually watch it back on my TV when I'm on the treadmill. Yeah. That has no comments. Duh.
Right.
Yeah, but I will check it out on my phone. It's not on my phone. It's on my TV. So I'll check it on my phone. Yeah, good deal. Thank you.
Oh, here's Chester's comment. Will the body become unreactive after a certain time on peptides, to certain peptides? I would say in my own experience, yes. I mean, I think that's why the titration schedule, I think so many doctors are moving to a slower titration schedule than Eli Lilly first put out there, because some people do lose a bunch on those lower doses and they race to get to the higher doses. And then, like for me, 15 just doesn't really do a whole lot for me anymore.
I think that it depends on the person. It hasn't changed for me, and I've been on for 20 months. The 5 is a little less than the 7 point effective, maybe than the 7.5 for me. That's the test I'm going to be doing, but I do think it depends on the person. 20 months is a long time, and I had to really reduce dose to stop losing weight. First of all, I kept losing, and I may be an outlier, but there are a few others like me, and it may be the bariatric surgery too. Right, that is a part of it. We are a little more responsive to it, but I have heard, like over on Mindy talk a lot about people saying they get the food noise back and things like that. I would say for me, mainly the food noise went away with bariatric surgery more than I didn't have that much of it. I had a little bit. So again, how it affects me is different. So that might also lean into how long it affects me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah. I think, the thing I've been saying lately to people is like, our bodies are the same, but they're different. I mean,
Yeah.
the chemistry is the same, but like our body's responses and the way that we're wired differently is comes into play with these medications in a huge way. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they evolve. And like, like for me, I've been so interested in retatrutide,
Yeah.
icagosema. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't need. There's no promise that I'll respond to those if I don't respond to the ones now. So it's like
Yeah.
when you said that there will still be a spot for bariatric surgery, I think you're 100% right. I think that the bariatric surgery is not going away. It's just that where it used to be like the only real thing that could treat true obesity in an impactful way long term, that's not going to be the case in the future. There's a lot of people who will never have to go under the knife who may have had to otherwise, but there still will be people who will need it. I think
Yeah.
I'm probably one of those people.
Well, and what you may also see is more of the endoscopic procedures, because the endoscopic procedures are a little less successful than the full-on procedures, but they're not the most bariatric procedures are very safe now. It's a 1% complication rate with a good surgeon, first of all, but it's even less than 1% with the endoscopic procedures. They're not covered by insurance yet either, and so you may see that. But I will never stop saying that bariatric surgery and the drugs are needed for me. Both. I need both. Period. My sister has not had bariatric surgery, and she's on compound. Started out on semaglutide and did okay. Switched to tirzepatide, and she's lost 97 pounds. But
Wow.
we have completely different food issues, completely different, and we're 16 months apart. Same mom and dad,
That's interesting. I also wonder if some of those forms of bariatric surgery that historically were less successful than complete gastric bypass
Yeah.
will become more successful when coupled with these new generation GLP-1 therapies.
Well, I think so, because the problem with the sleeve is some of us do exceedingly well. I mean, I've lost 140 pounds with the sleeve, which is really good, right? And a lot of people do, but the regain is crazy if you do something like I did and take some meds that bring your hunger back and your gastric emptying's off and stuff. And like, I would have never gained it all back. There was a baseline, right? But then there's also the work of Dr. Weiner and it's not all his research work. A lot of research out of the University of Michigan about set point is a big part of this too.
Is Dr. Weiner, does he have a podcast?
Yeah, he does. It's called the Pound to Cure podcast, and that's actually, yeah.
He emailed me this week.
Oh, he did? Oh, I love him. He's great. He's in Tucson now, but he started out in Michigan when I started watching him years ago. And he's one of my favorite bariatric surgeons, but he's also a big GLP-1 proponent. And he's a great guy. And he responds to me occasionally. I don't know him personally, but I am a member of his learning program, lifetime member, actually, because the Pound to Cure, his program is very interesting. It's just a little difficult for a bariatric patient to get all those fruits and veggies in. But he's got some great insight for sure. But his set point talks are really good.
Yeah. So
what email you about?
Yeah. He wants to collaborate.
Wonderful. I wanted to suggest that you guys do. I think I've mentioned him before, but I don't know. I probably haven't mentioned he come on or anything, but.
Yeah, so I had some people reach out to me this week and say, hey, this doctor, in full disclosure, I when I read it, I thought it was Wiener. But when you said Weiner, I was like,
it's Weiner.
It's probably not two of them with that name.
Right. No.
Yeah. So anyways, I had a couple people reach out to me and say, yeah, he gave you a nice shout out. And then he messaged me over on TikTok. And so he just wanted, I kind of started this whole thing out saying, it's kind of hard to get back to 150 comments and 30 emails and 25 inboxes. It's just impossible to keep up. But I did respond to him this week.
Good.
So, Hopefully we can get something
He's been
together.
around for a long time. He's got books out. He's very well respected. He's in the bariatric community and the weight loss community, very well respected. He's not a fly by night, hopped on TikTok because he started writing scripts. So,
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
Good deal. I'll have to give him a deeper dive. I did watch a little bit of his stuff, but
Yeah.
it's just so hard to find the time. But yeah, I'll have to check him out. The fact that you brought up his name tells me everything I need to know.
Oh, thanks, man. I listen to him every week when I'm, doing other things. That's what I try to do with all of this stuff is when I'm doing something else, I'll put my headphones on and just try to listen. Even if I don't watch the screen or whatever, I just try to listen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll have to reach out to him. Well, I think I got a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. day tomorrow of doing a trade show on my own. So I think I better call it. But
And
this was fun. Thank you for being willing to hang out with me all night and talk about all this stuff. Appreciate it.
Well, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's pretty late here. I'm on the East Coast, as you know, right now. So 3-hour time difference for my own normal time. So I was really happy to do it, though. It's really fun to be back into this. I missed it while I was gone, and I appreciate the chance to do it.
I'm sure I'm glad you feel good enough to do it.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
good.
Well,
check in with you periodically.
Yeah, as long as I don't do it every day, I think I can keep up with it.
All right. Try to keep it to once a week.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here, Michelle. I really appreciate you.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too, and have a great trade show.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Cut her off a little bit early. She said bye, everybody. So thank you to Michelle Hess for being here. And thank you to all of you. This is just so fun. And even when I'm on the road and it's just a little bit different, I'm so thankful for each of you that you show up here and hang out with me. It's the best part of the week in the community by my opinion, at least my humble opinion. So yeah, we're gonna hang it up tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for those who gave gifts tonight. Thank you for those who became members. Thank you for those who hung out and just nerded out with us. Like these are my favorite conversations, the one where we just talk about just like the nerdiest topics of GLP-1s. And there's very few people that I can do that with. So when I get the opportunity to, I love it. Thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate all of you. Looking forward to this coming week. It's a week where you're going to really have to pay close attention to the channel. Tuesday there will be many places there are at this point, because let's face it, there are many people covering the earnings calls now, but you all know that we've been doing it since I started. Nobody was covering Eli Lilly earnings calls in the community until we were on the pen. So many places that you'll be able to get information for, but this is the number one spot. Put number one in the chat if you agree tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of the channel. Go over, give this podcast a 5-star rating and review. Once this video posts, go over and put a comment in the description of the video once it goes live. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. Even when I'm on the road on the pen, I really appreciate you all. This is my favorite thing to do in the week. So it's a very, very bright spot for me. So thank you all for being here. We'll catch you on the next one. Until next week, we will see you on the pen. But may the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Have a great week. Thank you all for being here.